At the start of the story, a husband and wife notice their neighbors rushing out of their homes in panic. When they try to help, the neighbors look terrified just seeing them. Out on the street, everyone is running for their lives. Nick can't make sense of what's happening, but he decides to leave with his family. On the way, they suddenly see the same neighbors running back just as fast. Sensing something is seriously wrong, Nick's family grows anxious. When they get stuck in traffic, they discover that the only road out has been blocked by the military. Helicopters are evacuating people, while the radio keeps urging everyone to return home. Some people start turning their cars around, but Nick and his family are confused. They have no idea that a deadly virus has spread through the city, one that is turning people into extremely powerful and vicious zombies. As Nick tries to process everything, a rock suddenly crashes onto the hood of their car. When he looks up, he sees dust rising from the top of a cliff. Moments later, 2 fighter jets roar overhead and head straight toward the small town they used to live in. Before anyone can understand what's going on, the jets begin bombing the town. Explosions rain down and the entire place is destroyed. Everyone watches in horror, realizing that if they had followed the instructions and gone back home, they would have died. Within seconds, thick smoke covers the entire town. No one could have survived. But what's even more terrifying is that after completing their mission, the jets suddenly change direction toward them. That's when everyone realizes the truth. The military isn't trying to save them, it's trying to eliminate them. Panic spreads instantly. No one knows what to do, and staying there isn't an option. People scatter, desperately looking for a place to hide. Claire spots a water tower on a nearby hill and comes up with an idea. She leads her family toward it, but just then, the jets strike again. The ground beneath them erupts and their daughter is thrown down by the blast. Seeing the military's brutality, they don't dare stop. They run toward a school on the hill where they find an old bunker. They don't know if it can withstand another explosion, but it's their only hope. As the jets get closer, Nick breaks the chain and rushes inside first. Just as the door is about to close, a massive explosion shakes everything above them. Nick's family still can't understand why the government is doing this to them. Despite everything, they find no answers and are forced to stay inside. Luckily, the bunker is stocked with a large amount of expired food, enough to keep them alive for a while. They seal the door tightly with chains, abandoning all hope of the outside world. But life underground is brutal. Every day, they are forced to eat the same rotten canned food and drink dirty water from a well, struggling just to survive. In their free time, they had no choice but to pass the hours playing cards or hide and seek. The situation made them feel like the world had already ended. After nearly 5 months, Joey finally lost her patience. She asked her father how long they would have to stay down there. Nick didn't have an answer. He could only reassure her that they would go outside once the virus was gone and everything was safe again. But that wait stretched on for more than 300 days. Joey often peeked outside through the ventilation hole, but every time she saw the same devastation: burned houses, dry branches, and not a single sign of life. Still, she refused to lose hope. One night, while her parents were asleep, she quietly climbed the stairs and started pulling the chain hard, trying to open the hatch and escape outside. But none of them realized that the loud noise she made would bring a terrifying danger upon them. Just as Joey was about to open the bunker door, her parents arrived at the last second and stopped her, saving all 3 of their lives. But their relief didn't last long. When Joey opened a can of food, it turned out to be empty. Claire quickly checked the remaining cans. Every single one was completely drained. From the holes above, it became clear that rats had been stealing their food. They realized the rats were moving in and out through the ventilation system. Claire tried to comfort her daughter, promising that her father would go up the next day to find more food. Suddenly, Joey noticed a sound coming from behind. The starving rats had returned. Seeing this, Nick immediately pulled out his knife, his expression turning deadly, as if he was ready to tear the creature apart. He crouched down and slowly moved forward. Both mother and daughter held their breath as the atmosphere turned dangerously tense. Nick struck with full force, but missed. The small rat leaped onto the table, running wildly. Nick swung again, but missed once more. Just as the rat was about to escape past Claire and Joey's feet into its hole, Claire suddenly attacked it mercilessly. It was the first time Nick had ever seen his wife like this. But he understood. Desperate situations change people. But before they could recover, the smell of something burning filled the air. Claire noticed that while escaping, the rat had knocked over a lamp, which had now caught fire. Nick rushed to put it out, but the hot lamp burned his hand. As the temperature and pressure rose, the lamp exploded, scattering burning oil everywhere. Within moments, the entire table was engulfed in flames. Claire tore down a curtain, trying to smother the fire, while Nick pulled up half a bucket of drinking water from the well and threw it over the flames. Together, they finally managed to bring the fire under control. But thick smoke escaped through the ventilation shaft, and that meant one terrifying thing. Their hiding place could now be exposed. So the whole family quietly began to pray, hoping that in the darkness of the night those zombie-like creatures hadn't noticed the smoke. Everyone spent the entire night under a shadow of fear. The next morning, Nick noticed something even more terrifying. A thick layer of soot had settled on the mirror. That meant the smoke hadn't just escaped outside, it had also built up around the ventilation, leaving behind a dark residue. To avoid being spotted by the zombies, the husband and wife made the risky decision to clean up outside. They carefully unchained the door and listened. There was no movement outside. That's when they opened the hatch, leaving Joey alone in the base. After a long time passed with no sign of them returning, Joey climbed onto a stool and looked outside through the periscope. She saw her parents trying to hide the tunnel's entrance. Suddenly, in the distance, a dark shadow appeared in the forest. Joey screamed at the top of her lungs, but they were too far away to hear her. Panicking, she forgot her fear and rushed up the stairs, opening the gate and stepping outside. But outside, it was completely silent. There was no sign of her parents anywhere. When she finally saw them again, instead of feeling relieved, Joey kept muttering nervously. Then, suddenly, she pointed ahead. After all that chaos, it turned out she had just been scared by a deer. Nick let out a sigh of relief and comforted his daughter. But Claire couldn't shake the feeling. Why were the deer running like that? What was chasing them? Sensing danger, they all rushed back into the base. Nick sealed the opening with wooden planks and secured the door tightly with iron chains. After locking it down with multiple layers of protection, he finally went still, listening carefully to the outside. Holding his breath, Nick focused. And then he heard it, clear footsteps outside. Slowly, getting closer, until they stopped right above their heads. It felt like the zombie had sensed something unusual. It kept pacing back and forth as if searching for something. Following the sound, Nick realized the footsteps had stopped directly above the bunker door. Then suddenly, the gate rattled. A wave of fear rushed through them. Nick and Claire began to pray that the door wouldn't open. But then, the zombies started pulling at it. The door was chained shut, but it was impossible to hold it back. One by one, the chains began to snap, and the door slowly started to open. Claire rushed up the stairs, grabbing the chain, using all her strength to keep it closed. Nick smashed the water pipe at the last second, trying to jam the door shut. But by the time he climbed back up, it was already too late. The zombie forced the heavy iron door open, its glowing white eyes creeping closer. Nick swung the metal pipe with all his strength, smashing it straight into the creature's face. The zombie wasn't expecting the sudden attack and staggered back in pain. Acting fast, Nick wedged the pipe into the door to block it. Only after the sound of footsteps faded away did he finally breathe a sigh of relief. But they all knew the truth. Now that the bunker had been discovered, more zombies would come. Soon, the three of them sat near the stairs, exhausted and hopeless, holding on to a tiny bit of hope that the zombies might give up and leave. But that didn't seem likely. About 20 minutes later, the storage room cabinet started shaking violently. Heavy footsteps echoed from above, countless of them. And then, the horde arrived. Within seconds, they gathered again at the tunnel entrance and began slamming against the iron door. The moment it finally gave way, countless glowing eyes filled the darkness of the tunnel. Terrified, Nick rushed his wife and daughter into the storage room and hid. To slow the zombies down, he set the curtains on fire, and together they barricaded the door with a cabinet. But they knew it wouldn't last for long. There was no way out. Then, suddenly, John noticed something. The ventilation shaft led all the way to the surface. Nick climbed onto a table and used a rod to break open the wooden panel above. He lifted his wife up first and helped her climb out. Luckily, all the zombies had entered through the bunker's main gate, leaving the upper area empty. This was their best chance to escape. He quickly turned back and pulled his daughter up as well. Now, Nick was the only one left inside the bunker. Outside, the zombies were waiting. Without wasting a second, he tried to climb through the ventilation shaft. But the opening was too small. His shoulders got stuck, and he couldn't move. Claire pulled with all her strength, but he didn't budge. Nick realized the horrifying truth. His body wouldn't fit through. Meanwhile, the zombies were breaking in. With no other choice, Nick gritted his teeth and did the unthinkable. He broke his own arm to free himself. Claire didn't hesitate for even a second. Using all her strength, she pulled him out, and their little daughter rushed in to help too. Just as Nick was about to step out of the bunker, a zombie finally broke through the wall of fire. It lunged forward and grabbed his leg. Realizing there was no way out, Nick, in his final moment, told his wife and daughter to run as fast as they could. Then he was brutally dragged down. Claire fell to her knees, crying, leaning toward the bunker. From below, horrifying sounds of a struggle echoed, followed by her husband's painful screams. She knew something terrible had happened to Nick. There wasn't even time to grieve. She grabbed her daughter and ran. But as they fled, something felt off. Where there was once a highway, now only piles of wreckage and towering walls remained. There was no escape route left for the mother and daughter. Suddenly, a helicopter's searchlight locked onto them. They were completely trapped. Claire tried to retreat back into the darkness with her child, but out of nowhere, a large net was launched and captured them both. As shadowy figures with glowing eyes slowly approached, they realized these weren't zombies, but a fully armed team of soldiers. And whoever they were, they had no intention of letting them go. Claire begged them to spare her child, but the soldiers showed no mercy. They pulled out a device and injected something into their necks. As dark blood filled the container, it was confirmed. They were infected. Without hesitation, the soldiers raised their guns to execute them. The truth was, the entire city had already been infected from the very beginning. The virus was colorless, odorless, and spread through the air. People didn't even realize they were infected. Only Nick's family had survived this long by hiding in the bunker. But the moment they stepped out, the soldiers made a brutal decision. Suddenly, one of the soldiers' necks burst, blood spraying out. Nick had returned. His veins bulged, his eyes glowed red. He looked like a zombie. After transforming, his strength and speed had increased beyond human limits. He took down 2 soldiers with ease. He was so fast, no one could keep up with him. But the remaining soldiers quickly opened fire, and this time, Nick was killed on the spot. Once they were sure he was dead, the soldiers turned back toward Claire and her daughter, only to realize they had escaped, cutting through the net. The team leader ordered an immediate search for the 2 infected. Zoe had been hiding inside an old car. Hearing movement, she ducked down. Then suddenly, Claire launched a fierce counterattack, taking down several soldiers just like Nick. But no matter how strong she was, she couldn't withstand gunfire. She collapsed onto the hood of the car. Watching all this, Zoe broke down in tears, and suddenly, her body began to change too. As one soldier moved in to finish Claire, Zoe attacked him, knocking him to the ground and beating him relentlessly. He was on the verge of death, until a wounded Claire stopped her. She didn't want her daughter's hands to be stained with blood. She didn't want her to become a killer. But in the next moment, Zoe turned and attacked Claire herself. Thankfully, she snapped back to her senses, but the soldier wasn't so lucky. His shield had broken, and he had unknowingly been infected. His fate was now sealed. As the helicopter searching for them got closer, Claire had no choice but to run again with her daughter. After crossing piles of debris, they discovered a hidden bunker. Desperate to survive, they went deeper inside. It was pitch dark, only a lighter guiding their way. Suddenly, Claire saw a bright light, and they came across their neighbor's child, Marco. He led them forward through the darkness and finally stopped at a turn. When Marco lifted a manhole cover, Claire didn't understand what he was doing until familiar faces began to appear. There were more survivors hiding there. To stay alive, they had been forced to live like rats in the dark. Without wasting a second, Claire sealed the bunker gate behind them and decided to hide there until they could find a cure. With this, the story ends here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Also, subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.